As I begin this message, our great nation is yet reeling from an act of domestic terrorism against the literal heart of our democracy on Capitol Hill. Today was a day when America should have been celebrating the election of Georgia's first African American senator, the Reverend Raphael Warnock, and their first Jewish American senator, Jon Ossoff. Instead, we have all been watching our nation's capital literally be torn apart by violent trespassers. One of those trespassers paid for her illegal and unconstitutional behavior with her life. A day that should have been hailed as a day of life has become a day of death. Likewise, today the church celebrates the Feast of the Epiphany, the day when traditionally 3 kings from foreign nations brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh to be given to the Christ child. But if you were paying attention to my Blue Christmas message a few weeks ago, you might remember that Bethlehem received Christ with great sorrow. The state-sanctioned murder of all male children under 2 years old. King Herod slaughtered the Hebrew sons of an entire nation, something eerily familiar to African Americans experiencing police violence in our own nation. But today is not a day of police violence against American citizens. Today was a day of American terrorists against the police, against the orderly transfer of power, against the moral soul and literal heart of our democracy. Today is a day we mourn an all-out assault against the heart and soul of our democracy. Speaking about the omen of Christ's birth, Matthew chapter 2, verse 3 says, "When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him." And just like King Herod and all Jerusalem with him, President Trump and all MAGA country with him have heard, and they are afraid. They are afraid because they have heard. We are quantifying the win for President-elect Joe Biden. They are afraid because they have heard. We are celebrating the historic election of Senators-elect the Reverend Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff. They are afraid because they have heard that this country's ongoing state-sanctioned genocide of African Americans is coming to an end. In his adult ministry, which we will begin celebrating this coming Sunday, Christ taught us to pray for our enemies and to speak kindly to them. And so as I close this Epiphany 2021 message, I speak to those who support President Trump against all that actually does make America great. Matthew chapter 2, verse 12 says about the wise men who brought gifts to the Christ child, that having been warned in a dream, they were not to return to King Herod. In the story of our country today, we don't have a King Herod, but instead we have a president who wants to be a king. And a rather large minority of Americans who want a king. However, America has no king but Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. The era of the would-be King Trump is over. And I urge you on Christ's behalf not to return. Amen.